Is it correct that Aaron Wright is currently in the process of transitioning from being a man to a woman?
It is.
The adult son found Miss Aaron Wright passed out in her car with no pants on.
She also cashed out the remainder of her 401k.
It's the state's understanding that Ms. Schwartz, Ms. Tina Wright, and the state are all in agreement that we're asking this court to grant us a final order at this time in default of Aaron Wright. It's the state's understanding that testimony will show that Aaron Wright went into rehab on or about June 5th, 2024. And we don't have any additional information as to Aaron Wright's status at this time. The temporary orders, Your Honor, did set support from Aaron Wright based on the minimum wage presumption. And the state is not asking that the current child or medical support be changed. However, we are asking that this court award retroactive support to Ms. Tina Wright in the amount of $10,317.27 as a judgment. And then repayment, if the full amount is awarded, Your Honor, be $102 per month beginning July 1, 2024. Testimony as to the basis for that award, Your Honor, will be Ms. Tina Wright's knowledge of Aaron Wright's job with Acer, for which Aaron had worked up through January of 2024. And the parents' joint tax returns from 2022 at the same job indicated it was $54,000 for the year. And so the state used $4,500 as the gross monthly income, only these two children through January. So May 1 of 23 through end of January 24 at that rate. And then rather than minimum wage starting in February, Your Honor, it's a state's understanding that Ms. Wright will testify to Aaron Wright cashing out the 401k in the amount of $8,200 after applicable taxes. And so we were looking at $2,050 each of the months, February, March, April, and May, rather than the minimum wage presumption, which is how we got to that total. Remaining relief, Your Honor, that was not addressed in any of the prior temporary orders would be Ms. Wright's request to have non-disclosure granted. So Aaron Wright is not privy to her address if she moves from her current home. Testimony, additionally, Your Honor, will be that Ms. Wright is asking that the Bell County geographic restriction be expanded to the state of Texas, given that Ms. Tina Wright's support system is in Houston. And then with regard to court costs, we'll just ask for an appropriate ruling on that, Your Honor. But I believe one of the temporary ordered things that you may wish to revisit based on information from Ms. Wright and Ms. Schwartz is whether parents should remain joint managing conservators of the two children in this case.
All right, and I understand they are still married, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, that non-disclosure might not be appropriate. I've never had anybody ask me for non-disclosure people that were still married. So yeah, that's going to be it. That's going to be a little bit different. So I'll let you run it by me and see if that's something we legally can do one way or the other. So anyway, Ms. Schwartz.
Thank you, Your Honor. What the evidence is going to show today is that Miss Aaron Wright did not take the drug test timely. Miss Tina Wright did. Miss Aaron Wright completely missed the deadline and didn't take the drug test until she had already confessed to me that she was using methamphetamines. The cutoff for methamphetamines on that test was 100, and she had over 3,000 in her system. So as we all know, that depends based on the way that the body metabolizes, but it's very concerning that it was clearly very high. The other thing you're going to hear is that Miss Tina Wright was missing power and dropped the kids off with Miss Aaron Wright, supervised by her adult son, and the adult son found Miss Aaron Wright passed out in her car with no pants on. Miss Tina Wright immediately went and got the children, but the fact that the children were in the house while Miss Aaron Wright used some kind of substance that caused her to black out in the car in the parking lot, very close to the children. I mean, that's a huge concern. And the Miss Aaron Wright's parents put her in rehab, which is also a concern for me because of because she did not choose to go to rehab herself, and she has already left rehab at one point unsuccessfully in the past. So I am asking for sole managing conservatorship for Miss Tina Wright, and also asking that that visitation be at her discretion right now, because there's no sort of trajectory for when Miss Aaron Wright might do better. We're not seeing any kind of movement except unfortunately negative movement.
Who are the children in this case?
Annabelle, Kathleen, Elaine Wright, Ellen, Audrey, Corrine Wright.
How are you related to them?
I'm their mother.
And ma'am, how old is each of those children?
10 and 7.
Who is the father of these children?
Aaron Wright.
And ma'am, is it correct that Aaron Wright is currently in the process of transitioning from being a man to a woman?
It is.
And as far as the latest further temporary order, ma'am, you were aware that we finally put a child support and medical support obligation against Mr. Wright, Ms. Wright in the order.
Yes, ma'am.
And at this time, Ms. Wright, do you have any idea or reason to believe that Aaron Wright's income has changed significantly from the minimum wage presumption we used?
No.
And ma'am, as far as your children's health coverage, what is that currently?
I applied for Medicaid and I believe that it has been approved.
And so, ma'am, you'd maintain that going forward while Aaron Wright remains ordered to pay cash medical support?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as you know, Ms. Wright, where is Aaron Wright today?
She called me yesterday from Christian Farms Treehouse. I think that's the name of it.
What type of facility is that?
I understand it to be a 12-step rehabilitation facility.
And for how long has she been in that facility?
June 5th, since June 5th.
And ma'am, was her going into that facility something she told you herself, or did you hear it from some other person?
Her parents took her there.
And ma'am, prior to Aaron Wright being taken to that rehabilitation facility, had you witnessed anything since our last hearing on May 9th that gave you any additional concern?
Whenever I went to retrieve my children, I believed her to be under the influence.
Do you recall the date of that, ma'am?
May 27th.
And were you retrieving your children from Aaron Wright's residence?
Yes.
And ma'am, as far as the financial issues in this case, you were wanting us to go ahead and calculate retroactive or back child support since the date you and Aaron Wright separated, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When was that?
We separated on April 30th of 2023.
Okay. And so, ma'am, calculating from that date, you were aware that that Aaron Wright had a full-time job up until January 22nd, 2024, correct?
Correct.
Who was the employer?
Acer Computers.
And how long had Aaron Wright worked for Acer?
Since approximately November of 2007.
And ma'am, was I correct in telling the court that you were able to access the last joint filing tax return for you and Aaron Wright?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the gross monthly resources or gross resources, for Aaron Wright on that document?
$54,738.
And based on that information, ma'am, you were comfortable with the state extrapolating Aaron Wright's monthly resources to be $4,500 up until the end of January 24?
Yes, ma'am.
And ma'am, what was the reason that Aaron Wright stopped working for Acer in January?
She was fired, to my knowledge.
Was that the fact that Aaron Wright disclosed to you?
Yes. for failure to attend work.
And upon being fired, ma'am, did Aaron Wright take any additional action to secure unemployment or other funds so she could live?
She did apply for unemployment, but could not receive unemployment. I don't remember her reasoning for that, but she also cashed out the remainder of her 401k and told me that it was deposited to her account on February 1st, a total of $8,200 after the tax withholdings.
And ma'am, you understand that the state had calculated that the 4 months afterward, prior to us starting support, made that an average of $2,050 each month as a gross number, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Since the two of you separated, had Aaron Wright given you any financial support for your daughters?
No. 900, but no. I gave Aaron a lot of money too.
Understood, ma'am. And as far as your marital status, is it correct that you and Aaron Wright are still legally married?
Yes, we are.
At this time, is there any divorce pending anywhere?
No.
And then, ma'am, if the court grants that full judgment for $10,317.27, do you have any problem with the state asking for repayment of that amount at $102 each month beginning July 1st on top of the current support amounts?
I do not have a problem with that.
And then, ma'am, one of the other issues that the state had pled for and that wasn't addressed previously was non-disclosure or determining whether your physical address would appear in the court's order. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
And ma'am, in this case, what concerns do you have about your address appearing in the court's order and then having to update Aaron Wright if you move from your current home?
There have been multiple occasions when Aaron brought someone to my home or made them aware of my address. A person that they had used with this person was in June or July of 2023 taken to Canyon Creek after threatening gun violence. I had to lock my gates and be prepared for the possibility that this person may arrive at my home. I later found out that they were taken to Canyon Creek. In December of 2023, I came home from work at 11:15, 11:30 at night. I saw a car parked at the end of my driveway, and I realized it was Aaron's car, so I went to pull up next to it to see why she was in my driveway at that hour. Only it wasn't Aaron in the car. It was the same person from the incident in July. So she showed her where I lived. Again, this is a person who Aaron has used with, and I do believe to be a threat, unsafe, and I don't want to have the risk of Aaron showing somebody else where I live that may be under the influence or dangerous.
And ma'am, what method of communication have you and Aaron Wright used in the past?
We use text messaging, we use Discord, phone calls, face-to-face conversations. Done with
Are you
that.
comfortable with the phone conversations and other electronic means continuing?
Yes.
Was there anything else, ma'am, you wanted the court to consider on the issue of non-disclosure and the way that you and the other parent communicate?
I don't think so.
And then, ma'am, the issue of court costs wasn't addressed in the prior order. To your knowledge, has Aaron Wright ever served in the military?
No.
Has Aaron Wright ever worked as a first responder of any kind?
No.
Thank you, ma'am. Your Honor, I pass this witness.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Schwartz, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, are you asking for sole managing conservatorship today?
Yes, ma'am.
So that would mean the right to make all of the decisions regarding education, dental, doctor visits, things like that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you believe that Miss Aaron Wright is a safe person to be making decisions about the children?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Not at this time.
And did you speak with Miss Aaron Wright when she was in the car outside of her apartment complex?
She had already moved into the apartment. She was in her bed whenever I spoke with her. I avoided speaking with her for as long as possible, but
Did she
then
seem under the influence at that time?
definitely.
Did she have an excuse for why she left the house?
There was a lot of excuse there, but it summed up to she was masturbating.
Okay. And what time had she gone out to her car, to your understanding?
Around 1 a.m.
And what time did you show up at the apartment?
I arrived around 7, but I was notified of what had gone on. Got the first message at 5:30 and saw them around 6:30.
And did Miss Aaron Wright seem to think there was anything wrong with her behavior?
She was both defending her behavior and she was defending her behavior. She said that it was completely normal, but her tone, she said something along the lines of, I think that she is a crazed drug addict maniac.
Had there been visitation before then?
Only
Between-
supervised by my son.
Okay. And
Oh,
did
well,
her
no,
parents-
she did stay with me for 2 weeks after we found out she had been using. She stayed with me for 2 weeks to get sober, and she wasn't going anywhere. She was doing okay for those 2 weeks, but then things started being weird.
Were her sleeping patterns erratic?
During those 2 weeks,
To your knowledge, in general.
after those 2 weeks, yes, they were. They had started to become very erratic again.
Okay. And there were concerns about her feeding the children during her being asleep. Do you think that those concerns were still valid?
Yes, definitely.
I guess apart from that, do you have concerns about having to involve her in decision making for the girls?
Yes.
Do you have concerns with her? Or are you asking to be the one choosing whether she's appropriate to have visitation and what that visitation would look like?
Yes.
And would you be willing to have that visitation if it were safe?
If it were safe, yes, under her parents' supervision, I would allow for that. I am
And
comfortable with her parents supervising.
she did not enroll in the inpatient treatment on her own, correct?
No, she did not. There was an incident the night before that resulted in her parents telling her that she needed to. She's also homeless. I forgot to mention that earlier.
Okay. And has she been to rehab before?
She has been to Cedar Crest mental health facility. It was not for drug use, it was for suicidal ideation, but she left AMA after 3 days.
Okay. Are you anticipating, well, you spoke to her after she was already at the treatment facility, correct?
She called yesterday to speak with my daughters for Father's Day. I avoided speaking with her as much as possible.
Okay.
So Matthew, repeat that.
I avoided speaking with her as much as possible.
Thank you.
When you did speak with her, was there anything that suggested whether or not the stay in rehab would be successful?
No.
I will pass the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anything on redirect, Ms. Bungard?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly. Ms. Wright, the further temporary orders included a geographic restriction to Bell County, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Who is it in Bell County that you consider support or family to your children?
Aaron's brother is in Bell County still. That's it. My family is entirely in Houston area.
And ma'am, was the decision to move from Houston a joint one, or you
I had relatives in Milam County that were sick, and I moved there to take care of them, and that is when I met Aaron, and then we moved to Bell County. But my relatives that I had in Milam County have since passed.
Okay. And so at this time, ma'am, you don't have any plans to move, but you'd like the ability to do so without coming back to court?
Yes, please.
And I believe, ma'am, earlier when you mentioned the lack of power, that was all as a result of the storms and tornadoes, specifically here in Temple.
Yes, ma'am.
Additionally, ma'am, you may have experienced, I believe, some financial and housing concerns. Can you tell the court a little about that?
Part of it had to do with Aaron, because Aaron at first initially wanted to get sober immediately after we found out about the drug testing. Aaron's mom had talked to me and they were going to help out financially if Aaron was hanging out here a lot to be supervised for visitation and such. And then that had cost, but after what happened on May 27th, of course, I told Aaron that I was done. I wouldn't take that risk again. So I didn't get any financial help from Aaron's mom as promised. And then with the storms, we had to rent motels and stuff. I thought I was going to lose my home. I spent too much to exist without electricity during those 5 days. I couldn't pay rent. Thankfully, my landlord was aware of the situation because our whole area was impacted heavily and gave me some extra time, and I was able to pay it yesterday, so I do get to stay. But I was really concerned that I was not going to be able to afford a place to live or find another one in Bell County.
Thank you, ma'am. Your Honor, I pass this witness.
All right, Ms. Schwartz.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Any other witnesses at this time, Ms. Pontiac?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Schwartz.
No, Your Honor.
All right, then, Ms. Wright, is there anything else, ma'am, you think I need to know that didn't come out in your general testimony that is, direct evidence, eyewitness evidence, that sort of thing?
No, sir.
Your Honor, I am requesting that Ms. Tina Wright be named sole managing conservator, and the reason for that is that Ms. Aaron Wright has shown in a lot of ways that she is not putting the children's needs first, as you've heard. I'm very concerned that the children were present in the apartment when she left, and she did admit herself to Ms. Tina Wright that she was acting in behaviors. I mean, public masturbation is not the best. The fact that Ms. Tina Wright's son was the one who found her disrobed and passed out in her car is completely inappropriate. And the fact that Miss Aaron Wright has consistently invited unsafe people to Miss Tina Wright's home, even when Miss Tina Wright wasn't there, as was heard and when she pulled up to her driveway and the other woman was in Miss Aaron Wright's car. This is all just intensely disturbing. I'm concerned that we don't seem to have enough of an improvement here to really form a stair-step plan of visitation to improve things. I'm glad that these children are as old as they are because they are able to talk with their father by phone, and Miss Tina Wright is not wanting that to change. But there were already serious concerns about these children not being fed timely or at all, and not having enough attention, which is part of the basis for my report from speaking with the girls. And so I think that Miss Aaron Wright can do well for a certain amount of time, but it's very dangerous the way that she backslides, and it's very dangerous for these girls. And I do worry about if she were involved in the decision making or if she were to know where Miss Tina Wright lives. And I am also asking for the geographic restriction to be lifted so that it's just the state of Texas, so she can have the support, because Miss Tina Wright is just not getting any help from Miss Aaron Wright.
Thank you very much. Ms. Pontiac.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state's asking that the current support continue from the further temporary orders, that the court award retroactive support as it deems appropriate based on the testimony, that the issue of non-disclosure be ruled on along with court costs, and that mother maintain government medical for the children with Aaron Wright paying cash medical support. And that this be final, Your Honor, so that if any changes are necessary in the future, either parent may go ahead and request such or file something on their own behalf.
And what was the amount of retro you were requesting and the repayment amount again, please?
$10,317.27, Repayment of 102, Your Honor.
I'm gonna go ahead and look at naming Ms. Tina Wright sole manager conservators. I'm not gonna order any visitation or access until further order of the court. Well, I'm sorry. I'll leave it up to Ms. Wright's discretion, and that includes video chats and things like that, because I've seen those get out of hand too. So, ma'am, that's left up to you totally. If you're gonna do video, you're gonna do live, it's left up to you. But until further order of the court, that is that. I'm gonna go ahead and name the I'm gonna go ahead and name the other parent of possessory conservator. But again, I'm gonna hold off on awarding her rights until further order of the court based on I would need to know how what's gonna happen with the rehab, and not only that she successfully completes it, but can successfully retain her sobriety. So that's the long-term aspect. So until we get that data, I'm just not going to give her any rights under conservatorship at this point. I will give her obligation to pay child support based on minimum wage presumption. I'm going to grant the state's request for retro and repayment of such. I'm going to lift the geo restriction and extend it to the state of Texas. Ms. Wright, I usually make it the central time zone portion of central Texas, state of Texas. So you can't move to El Paso, all right? But that's
Okay.
all right. Yeah. Yeah, but
Too
one
hot
of my best
there.
friends loves El Paso, so hey, but that's them. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to grant non-disclosure as far as this case is concerned. If y'all end up in the divorce court, that's probably going to change, but that's going to be the district court, and this case will have to be consolidated into that one anyway if that happens. So I'll let the district judge deal with that if it gets there. But right now, based on these circumstances and what's happened in the past, I am going to go ahead and grant non-disclosure until further order of the court. And I'll order that Ms. Wright be, non-custodial party be responsible for court costs based on what's going on in her life right now. I'm going to go ahead and give her to February 28, 2025 to make any payments that or pay that off in full, if so billed. And I think I granted everything that everybody was requesting. Did I miss something?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, so ma'am, good luck to you and the kids. Well, hopefully you're able. I hope your significant other, gets her life together. But yeah, it's not based on these circumstances and the court's experience with these types of things. Yeah, this is not a 60-day, 120-day fix. This is a 2-3 year fix. So it is what the circumstances are. What the circumstances are. So at this time, ma'am, do you have any questions? Anything else you're asking the court to rule on?
No, sir. That's all. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Bungat, Ms. Schwartz, Ms. Wright be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, we're officially off the record, and I'll let the state prepare that order and circulate it amongst y'all and get it to me. And again, like I say, we're off the record. Thank you.
Giving my client, the father, primary legal custody. You ordered that he was allowed to give the mother visitation at his discretion and ordered that the mother pay child support.
I'm sorry, and this case started with me. Was it ever before another judge?
Not to my knowledge.
So during that time, Your Honor, he was disciplined. And he was put on punishment because we had a conversation about guns, about young Black boys with guns, about that you aren't allowed to have one.
During that incident?
No, ma'am. My husband has never put his hands on Cameron ever.